All right, quick tip for you guys about Garmin Livescope power issues. I had a boat that had two units on it, two fish finders, and I could run all day with those two units, running two transducers, and run my pumps on the live well like for a tournament all day. And by the end of the day, I could tell that the pumps in the live wells were sort of running down. They were running slower than they were that morning anyway, but everything was still functioning, still had enough voltage and all that. And that was on a group 24 battery. And it was on like a 9 and a 7. However, I upgraded to this boat, and when I did, it had two units on it, a 9 and a 7, which again is similar, but it also has two power poles on it, which they don't use much in standby mode, and depending on the time of the year, you may not use them all that often, to draw that much power. But I wanted to get Livescope, and I knew that there had been some power issues going on with that, and so I added it anyway. A 9-inch, this is the 93 SV, and the Livescope with the black box. The black box is down here inside the rod holder box. And well, this boat, like I said, I had the group 54 battery, and it ran fine. So instead of going to a 27, which I think you should always go way up on the battery for a number of reasons, but this thing, I bought a Optima blue top, and you can see this is the 31M, by the way, big one with 75 amp hours. And I thought that surely that would be enough, because I hadn't put pen to paper to think about the actual amp draw, because usually these units, they don't pull that much power unless you start getting into the 10-12 inch screens, and you've got 4 of those, and these are smaller screens really compared to what the big demand screens are. But anyway, I decided that 31, which is a $400 battery, right? I said, well, that one should get me about what I need to do. I was wrong. In fact, after about, I don't know, an hour, I was already down to 12.1, something like that, 12.1 volts. And after about 4 hours, I'm bumping 11.9, 11.8, and I multiple times trying to charge the battery differently. Maybe it's not getting a full charge. I thought maybe, all these things, but I went back to the drawing board and looked it up, and it depends on where you get the information from to determine how much current the Livescope actually draws. It's sort of mixed, right? And they give you this range that's fairly severe range, right? From 0.75 all the way up to like 4.5 amps, something like that. And so if it's pulling 3 or 4 amps, that's a big difference from 1 amp, right? I mean, that's 4 times the amount, and that will put you in a bad way. And like I said, I knew about these power issues before, which is why I monitored it, and I was watching the voltage on my Garmin. And when it looks like it was getting too low, I would shut it off, or at least unplug the black box, and start my boat and go to a new spot and go from there. But I have resolved that power issue, and so I'm going to provide for you what I did, because one option would be to get another AGM battery, another Optima, which is another $400 to double my amp hours. But that adds another 75 pounds in the boat. And so I did a test with that. I put an old Optima in the back and just strapped it down in there. And whenever I'd slow down, I had water sloshing over the top of the motor. It's just too much weight. It's just too much weight. And ideally, what I would need to do is to put lithium batteries, right? A giant lithium battery, something like 150 or a 200 amp hour battery, which would start the motor and run all the electronics just fine. But that's a lot of money. When you start getting up in that range, it's like $2,000, which is $2,000 I don't have to spend on this. So the simple solution turned out to be the best one and the cheapest one, actually. So this is what I've done. I have a 9-inch in the console, a 7-inch up here that I run maps on, and then I have the 9 that runs the Livescope. And so what I did is I took the 7 and the 9 that are here, left everything in place as it was. The only thing I pulled it out of my fuse panel up front, was the 93 SV and the black box. And I ran them inside of the rod locker in here. And for now anyway, because I was doing testing, I just have it like this, all right, with these little clips on it. And I was able to run it with a battery that I picked up at Bass Pro, which is a lithium battery, but it's not one of their expensive batteries. It's a $500 battery, but the $500 battery wouldn't get me anywhere because I'd be in the same spot as the Optima, right? So I picked this thing up right here, this 18-hour tracker lithium battery. I have it on good authority that these things are actually made, by the way, by Amped Outdoors. And so if you've ever looked up, you know, lithium batteries or how much current the Livescope pulls, you're going to get this website, the Amped Outdoors website. It doesn't say that anywhere on here, but I sort of found out accidentally. But this battery, 18 amp hours, and it weighs 4 pounds, right? 4 pounds. I usually just stick it in the rod locker, plug it up, and move on. And so I've been doing some testing with it. I don't have a switch wire to it yet. I just pull off the terminals whenever I'm done, push them on whenever I'm ready to go. But I'm gonna wire a switch up to, or I think actually what I'm gonna do is use one of those Yak Power relays. And when I turn on my sonar on my dash, it's going to turn on my power for my Livescope. So I fished with this battery and I left it on as I went home, left the unit and the black box on, came home, and then I waited for this thing to turn off for lack of power. And by the way, while I was fishing, it started at 13.1 volts and it took about 2.5 hours for it to get to 13 volts, just for that 0.1 drop. The battery is actually pretty awesome. And I got home at the end of fishing and waited, and it was still at 12.9, which is incredible. Well, this battery lasted over 10 hours. I don't know the exact number because I wasn't monitoring it like that. I monitored it every 30 minutes. And at 10 hours, it was still good. At 10.5 hours, it looked like it had just cut off. So, because I know it was there at 10 hours and 15 minutes. So somewhere in that range is what I got out of it by running this unit and the black box together constantly for that amount of time, over 10 hours. $150 battery, weighs 4 pounds, so it really is not adding anything to your boat. Solved my problem. And if you're gonna go on a multiple day thing, you know, maybe you'd want to have another one, but I have a little charger, and that charger, it takes 4 or 5 hours, and the thing was completely charged up again, and it was already on maintenance mode with a 3-amp charger. So it's not really necessary. You're gonna charge up your other batteries anyway, you might as well do that. So I haven't figured out the long-term plan for what I'm gonna do as far as charging, because I don't wanna have to take it in and out. I like simple. I plug in the extension cord in the back and the battery's charged. So I'm thinking about what to do about that. But anyway, this didn't add anything to the boat as far as weight. It's 4 pounds, right? And now everything functions as it should. I have plenty of power in the boat. And when I don't need Livescope for whatever reason, I'm just not gonna run that, and everything else will run just fine. So that's just a quick tip. If you got power problems, do that. I did everything else that people said. I ran larger wire. Maybe that wasn't large enough. I ran even larger wire. I did all sorts of things. Didn't make a difference. I pulled this off, put it on here, solved all my problems. Hope that solves it for you too, if you're running into issues like that. So like and subscribe, guys, for more quick tips.